Hey everyone, if you've watched any videos from me before, you may know my name is Jessie. I am probably going to ramble for a little bit. I was just thinking about wanting to make a video with some things that I've been thinking about. Yeah, so cool, we're going to do it. Yeah, recently I started asking people to refer to me by they, them pronouns. I think specifically this was maybe like the end of September, or sometime in September. And I just I'm going to talk about my experience reaching that point, and then additional thoughts that I've had since asking people to do that. So, you know, for a long time I thought that I was just a queer woman, and I didn't really, I knew about people who were trans, both in a binary and in a non-binary sense, but I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, I support all of those folks, but that's not me, I'm over here, I'm gonna do my thing, and I just happen to be a more masculine presenting woman who dates women. Yeah, I guess especially over the last few years, actually let me pause on that. So I'm 25. Maybe I shouldn't be telling that to a bunch of strangers on the internet. I don't know if anyone will actually watch this video, but I'm 25. I entered the queer sphere officially about 10 years ago when I was a sophomore in high school. It was terrible and great at the same time. I had watched, I'm a YouTube generation. I don't know if that's a thing, but I especially I grew up watching silly YouTube videos, but the end of middle school and the beginning of high school and all throughout the rest of high school, I watched so many vlogs. I was using Tumblr and I was watching vlogs from particularly lesbian women, but also from all different types of queer folks. But yeah, so some of the videos that I watched way back in the day were actually from Ryan Casada and from another female to male trans person who I always forget what his name is, but it's fine. But I would just be watching these videos and I would never really think about why am I watching these? I don't know, but I am, and so here we are, and we're just gonna keep doing it, and we're gonna not really think about the things that are lying underneath the motivations for why I'm watching these. But so that was high school, right? Move a little bit forward, we are into the realm of adulthood, right? When I was 19, I moved away from home for the first time, and I went and did an AmeriCorps service program. And some people who I met that year, the following year when I did another AmeriCorps program, would ask me what pronouns I use and things like that. And I think at first I got kind of offended. I was like, why are you asking me this? I'm just a queer woman who looks more masculine. Why are you asking me what pronouns I use? But then, particularly, there was this one person who I dated, and we kind of like had a joke. It was like, I'm not like a woman per se, like I'm more of a puppy. Which I can't really go into explaining that right now, but it was just like early stages of me, Jesse, grappling with gender in a more accessible and humorous ways. I'm not this or that. I'm a puppy. So anyway, I didn't really know anyone personally who was like formally out to me as trans, either binary or non-binary. These first two AmeriCorps programs that I did. But this must have been, the fall of 2016, I briefly did a stint at the infamous Evergreen State College for one whole quarter. And I started meeting folks who were non-binary or gender fluid. I guess that's not really an or, but they were non-binary and they were using they, them pronouns. And it was interesting because it was something that I respected, but it was still very hard for me to start respecting the people. Like, I would think about these people and be like, okay, this person uses they, them pronouns. But then I would have just like the hardest time making it actually stick. And this one person in particular who we worked together at an on-campus job, I repeatedly used the incorrect pronouns just like on accident, and I felt terrible. It also didn't help that I had like a crush on this person. So it's like I wanted to talk to them and I was like nervous, and then I would like say things and then I'd be like, ah, shit, I just totally used the wrong pronouns. And I should also even clarify, I guess, that at Evergreen, it was just normal. Like when you meet people, you say like, this is my name, these are my pronouns. And this is actually going to be something that I come back to, hopefully if I remember, in the second half of what I want to talk about. But yeah, so I knew what pronouns this person used. I knew their pronouns were they, them. And we like talked about it every day, especially like when new people started working at the job that we were at, which was pretty like constant. And yeah, it just probably, it must have been at least 3 to 5 times that I used the wrong pronouns for them. And, you know, one day, I don't know, I think we were like painting a wall in our like custodian area. And I just told him, I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. I keep using the wrong pronouns for you, and I just really want you to know that I'm sorry. And I did that thing. I mean, I guess memory isn't the greatest right now, but I think what I remember is that I didn't just briefly apologize, carry on, start using the right pronouns like everybody says, like what I tell people to do now, but rather I like made it kind of a bigger thing than it should have been. But also, like, that being said, it was just me and this person, yeah, it felt safe. Granted, anyone could have been like around the corner and I might not have known about it. So whoops, I was 21, I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, so Evergreen is really kind of the first time that I had to get used to people saying like, these are my pronouns, cool, hi, nice to meet you, and then me trying to add that into the normal things that I'm thinking about and trying to remember about a person, like not just like, oh, what's their name, but also what pronouns do they use. And it's also where I first started encountering a lot of folks who were using gender-neutral pronouns. Fast forward a year later, I have dropped out of college again, and I am doing, I'm teaching environmental education and then doing trail work in a different AmeriCorps program in the state of Massachusetts. And it just so happens that one of our like trail supervisors who comes in to you know be our supervisors for us youngins, they use they them pronouns, and this is someone who I highly respect. Like, they're radical. Probably, I don't remember how much older than me they are, but within like 10 years, I think. And yeah, I had never had a boss. They weren't my boss, but I had never had like somebody who had more authority than me, and we were doing the same like work, who was non-binary or who was using gender-neutral pronouns, until this person. And yeah, I really like resonated with it, and I like took it upon myself, like, if anyone was using the wrong pronouns, I'd be like, hey, let's get right. These are their pronouns. And yeah, I suppose that was this supervisor was probably the first person who I really got to know pretty well, just because we were, well, they didn't live at our housing because they lived in the area, but I spent a lot of time, relatively speaking, with this person. Yeah, and you know, I'm still going along like, oh, I don't really care about gender. Actually, in fact, probably after the supervisor started working with us, my partner, who we were just starting to date at the time, we met doing this environmental education and trail work stuff. And she, you know, has graduated college, whereas I'm a 3-time dropout. She's got a little bit more academic knowledge in terms of queer theory and things like that that I just don't have. And one night we were like talking about gender, and I just straight up told her, like, I mean, I probably didn't say it as straightforward as this, but it was like, I don't think that I am like woman, but I've never given myself time to like think about it. Just because I don't want to. I don't feel the need to think about it. You know, I really had internalized this idea, which maybe it was transphobic of me. I'm not sure. It was something, but the idea was like, what does my gender matter in the grand scheme of things, right? Where there's like institutional racism, police brutality, the climate and ecological crisis, where like Israel is occupying Palestine, and like there's all these terrible imperialist, capitalist, racist things going on everywhere. I was like, there's so much more important things to be focusing on with my time and my energy than thinking about what's my gender, you know? And that was, yeah, really how I felt about it for quite a while. And I think even now, just for full transparency, I probably can still get in that headspace, right? Which is not cool, but I'm just being honest. So anyway, though, yeah, I told my partner this, and then we like moved on. The conversation was completely forgotten. Well, not really, but you know, we didn't talk about it again for a little while. Fast forward again, like a year and a half, yeah. We live in Denver, doing a lot of activism here, and we sorry, someone sent me a message. With the groups that I'm involved in, we ask people, like, when we're at meetings or whatever, to say, like, your name and your pronouns and whatever other things you want to say about yourself. And, you know, this is actually, I should clarify, back at Evergreen, I started telling people, when people would ask me, I said, my name's Jesse, she or they. That's fine. And that's what I continued doing when I was doing trail work in Massachusetts. And for a while with these groups here in Denver, that's also like what I was doing. I was just like, yep, my name's Jesse, she or they are great. And then I would move on. I started working at a call center. And there, I talked to a lot of sexist old men. There were also hunters who were trophy hunting, and that's not just me being judgmental. This is like straight up, they would ask me, like, where can I find the biggest, like, elk, the biggest moose, the biggest deer, biggest bear, biggest pronghorn, like, whatever. They're like, just very not cool people. They're not just hunting to, like, find food that they're gonna eat for the year or something. They're like, yeah, trophy hunters. And they would use the phrase, like, trophy units. So I'm working in this call center. My name is spelled the traditionally male way, right? Which a lot of people have a hard time with. Thank you, Mom and Pop, on that one. And that's always been a point of contention for me, like, since I was a kid. People always spelled my name wrong, and it always bothered me. And, yeah, so at this call center, talking to a lot of these old men, and they would be very sexist. There was a lot of, like, less, like, explicitly sexist things, but things that were more subtle that just, like, had an impact on me, where people were, like, calling me, like, miss and ma'am, and they would call me, like, honey and dear, and people, like, often, well, not often, I occasionally would say things to me about, like, oh, well, like, do you have a boyfriend? Like, your boyfriend could go take you hunting. And just kind of things that were, like, inappropriate and not professional, which, like, you know, they wouldn't have said if it was to someone who sounded male. Yeah, and so it was like the end of May, beginning of June last year, so in 2019, that I started working at this job. So that's on the phone, this is happening. But if I would email people, I would get sirs, I would get misters. Just felt very like people are respecting me in a different way over email versus the way that they talk to me on the phones, because they can hear my voice and they can hear that it's not, like, as low as, like, a man or male-bodied person, right? And so that's happening. I'm also in these activist spaces, and someone who I've gotten to know pretty well through activism, like, they were doing what I was doing for a little while. They were saying she or they, but then they started asking people, like, just they. Please use they pronouns. And, you know, I think this is someone who I admire a lot and who I look up to. And I just started thinking about it more for myself, and it really started to feel like people were being condescending at my work in particular. Not only people on the phones, but my coworkers. Like, in moments where they could have said my name, they were saying, like, she, and it felt very sharp, and it felt very pointed, and it felt like they were trying to put me into a box that I had no intention of being a part of. That box being you are female-bodied, therefore you are women, therefore we're gonna, even though you're dressed a certain way, we're gonna make sure that you know that I know what you are. And it felt like people were telling me what I am, as opposed to me being like, well, hey, can we, like, chill a little bit? Yeah, So work atmosphere is unhealthy for me. I don't know if I would call it like dysphoria per se, but like I'm just like starting to feel like angry and uncomfortable, and I don't know. I guess mostly just those, angry and uncomfortable by the atmosphere at my work, in regard to my gender, to my gender identity as well as my gender expression. And yeah, so September comes around. Ooh, exciting times. So 2 things kind of happened in September. I was at a protest. It was an abolish ICE protest, ICE as in the Immigration Customs Enforcement. And there was a woman who was like a marshal, and I was putting myself in a position where I was, well, me and one of my friends, we were kind of the last block, if you will, between the rest of the protesters and the counter protesters, who were a lot of Proud Boys and a lot of just like blatant white supremacists. And there was this one person there who, I don't fucking know his name, but some dick wad who like, apparently I think he has a YouTube channel, like he blogs and things, and he like particularly goes to like leftist spaces to try to troll people and get them to say dumb shit so that he can then be like, oh look, the left, they're so reactionary and dumb, right. So this guy, he like sees me and he starts trying to get a rise out of me by like making comments about my gender, and then there's this woman though who's a marshal, and she can see, like, I don't care about this guy, but like something had happened, and she turns and she asks me like, hey, what pronouns do you use? And like without even thinking, I was just like, they, them. And then like, you know, after I said it, I was like, it was kind of like an intense situation, just being at this protest. But I was just like, wow, I've never just like responded that to someone. And that kind of had me thinking like, well, if this is an intense situation right now and somebody asks me this question, probably what I say is actually how I feel. So that was kind of big for me. And then, oh, interesting. Probably actually before, or wait, what day was that? I think a week after that, we went up into the mountains, me and my like environmental activist friends, and we had this like retreat, and we like were sharing our pronouns and stuff, and this one person who I mentioned earlier, like I admire them, I look up to them, and they use they, them pronouns. I just like, something at the retreat kind of clicked in me again, and I told them, I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I think you're really brave, and I have a lot of respect for you, and, you know, I tell people my pronouns are she or they, but the she, I don't say that for me, I tell that for other people. Really, it feels for me more like they. Yeah. So that happened, very brief. And then probably like a week after that, I you know, I got arrested on accident, which was another thing. But doing activism. And the arrest happened a week after the protest, or I'm sorry, not the protest, the retreat that we had. So there was abolish ICE. Jesse says they, them when asked. Then retreat with fellow activists in the mountains. Telling other friend, I use they, them, or I feel they, them, right? Which is a weird sentence. Anyway. And then a week after that, Jesse gets arrested, and then a couple days later, we're doing like a debrief of, this thing, because I was only in jail for like 13 hours. And I just say it, like, for the first time in a meeting space with my activist people, I'm like, yeah, my name's Jesse, they, them pronouns would be great. And I'm like freaking out because like I've been organizing with these people for like 9-10 months, if not longer, for at least a couple people from different organizations. And so this is a change. This is like, it's not the same, I don't think, as kind of like coming out with like your sexuality, or coming out like and being like, yo, what up, I'm trans, either in a binary or a non-binary sense. I think it felt different than that, but it still felt like a big deal. So I was a little freaked out about it, but I said it, and thankfully all of my people who I do activism with here are great, and they have been really radical about trying to use the correct pronouns for me, which makes me happy. Yeah, so that's kind of the first half. Wow, I've been talking for a long time. Yeah. But then the second half is kind of like, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about trans things, about things pertaining particularly to gender, and there's one thing that's kind of come up that's like, you shouldn't ask people what their pronouns are, because, well, I think for two main reasons, is what one I saw on the internet, and the other is actually from a friend of mine here in Denver. But one reason was like, you can out someone, right? Like, say if you're in a college class, or say I'm in a college class, and I happen to be like the only person who uses they, them pronouns, everyone else has to say their pronouns, and it's like, oh, I'm Susan, she, I'm Billy, he, I'm Jesse, they, and then everyone else is just like she or him, right? Then I have been outed because a power above me has asked me to share my pronouns, and maybe I wouldn't have preferred to share my pronouns. So that's the first thing. I think there was a David Pakman video that was kind of talking about that, which I hadn't thought about it before, but I was like, yeah, that's a fair point. The second thing is for folks who are gender fluid. So, like, I have one friend in particular who does not care what pronouns you use for them. And actually, God, I suck. This person doesn't like gender neutral pronouns at all. This person hates them being the pronouns, because it worsens her dysphoria. But she's fine with she's fine with him, but specifically they, them worsens the dysphoria, and I think it also is confusing for them. Wow, it's really hard for me, if you can't see, to try to figure out how to not use they and them when talking about people who I'm not referencing what the name is of that person. Okay, but yeah, so the thing that I'm thinking about is that, like, is it better to ask people to share their pronouns? Is it better to just not ask them? And my bias is there's probably not a right answer to that. It probably depends from person to person. And that's just, I mean, my bias in most things is, well, it depends on the individual person, because we're all different. And, just because one person feels this way, or maybe a lot of people feel this way, doesn't mean that's how everyone feels. But yeah, so I guess, I mean, the thing that I'm, I guess, really just wanting to share to people about, like, do you ask someone for their pronouns, is like, I think a fine, slightly nuanced approach would be like, hey everyone, we're gonna say our names. If you would like to share your pronouns, please do. If you don't want to, that is a-okay too, and you don't need to say them. And yeah, yeah, I guess I probably have more things that I actually wanted to talk about, but now that I've said the whole, like, do you ask people what their pronouns are thing, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I think one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video is just because, like, there's a lot of stuff I've been thinking about. I haven't been the greatest about giving myself time and space to think about things. But yeah, I am a human who chooses to use they them pronouns. You know, I'm not gonna fucking yell at you if you call me by something else. Oh wow, that's actually kind of important. You know, my whole life actually, I used to, well, I played competitive sports growing up. And I would wear hand-me-downs from my brother, and I would keep my long hair pulled back in a braid, and I would wear, like, hats, and I'd often wear them, like, backwards, and, you know, like, when you're a kid, I feel like, I don't know, people have told me that I look androgynous. I don't know how I appear to other people. I think I look androgynous, but whatever. But as a kid especially, like, people always called me he, him. Like, always. Even when I had long hair. And I think as a kid I was, like, uncomfortable with it, but now, like, being mid-20-year-old, I'm looking back and I'm like, that makes sense. And even, like, when I got older, like, you know, post-puberty, if I had long hair, even if it was down, people would still misgender me. Also me wearing, like, more feminine clothing. And then after that, once I cut my hair short, which happened when I was 18, it's never been long since then. So math is hard, 7 years of short hair. But I've had, like, little kids ask me, like, oh, are you a boy or a girl? And I always think of that meme with, like, the skeleton that's like, neither, ha ha ha. But yeah, so just to kind of highlight very quickly, when I should have said this earlier, like, I've always had an experience of people perceiving me as being in between, or being both, or neither, of the binary genders, at least, right? And yeah, I don't remember specifically why I thought about this right as I was about to stop talking, but yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. It's almost been 35 minutes. I'm not gonna edit this or anything, so if you watch this, thank you. You're amazing, and I don't know why you stayed this long. Yeah, I guess one thing I did actually want to say before I stop is sometimes I felt like a bad, like, queer person, and I mean the word queer both in terms of sexuality and gender, because especially over the last, like, 5 years, as I have left the internet behind and started doing more like outdoor things and traveling a lot. I think I don't think I'm ignorant, you know, but I'm just not as like up to date on the newest like words and the you know, I'm not an expert at all on queer theory. In fact, I'm probably pretty stupid when it comes to queer theory. Or like I might not sound like intelligent, at least about things pertaining to queer theory. But yeah, so I feel like my perspective, I just wanted to share it because it can be intimidating sometimes to like watch videos of people talking about these things and you're like, wow, they know so much and they seem so smart, and like, how do they know all these things, and how do they know all these terms, and like, am I wrong or am I bad because I don't know these terms, or whatever different thoughts, feelings, questions, concerns that like pop up in your mind. Yeah. Point being, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to have an experience with, an opinion on, a feeling about gender, sexuality, these things, and that's really just kind of the perspective that I wanted to offer. I guess this is also kind of just me saying to the world, like, hello, I am another one of those people who uses they, them pronouns. Do I know anything beyond that about my gender at this point? No, but for now I think that's fine. I'm not ignoring it like I was before, and for that I am thankful. So cool, thanks for watching this. Hope that something valuable came out of it for you. If nothing else, then just learning more about me and listening to me talk. Okay, well, see ya.